The train screeched to a halt in the dust-choked town of Redstone. Clara stepped off with trembling hands, the parchment letter from her groom still warm in her pocket. The scent of scorched earth and smoke curled in the air. She'd dreamed of this day, of beginning anew, of love, of safety. But what greeted her wasn't a smile. It was silence and blood. His body lay slumped against the church steps, stiff, cold, shot dead before she ever met him. A boot scraped gravel behind her. She spun, heart leaping. Shadows loomed. 3 men, faces hidden, watching. She ran. Through the alleys, past the saloon, lungs burning. A gun cocked. Then, a voice. "That's far enough, boys." A tall figure emerged from the dark, hat low, eyes burning beneath. One shot rang out. The others fled. Who was he? Why did he save her? And what did he know about the man she was supposed to marry? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story stirs something in your heart, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've got something extra special for you. Clara Bell stared out the train window as barren land rolled past like a forgotten dream. Her gloved hands were folded tightly in her lap, hiding the tremble in her fingers. She wasn't just arriving in the West. She was fleeing something far worse in the East. The world she'd left behind was built on cold expectations and colder promises. Out here, among outlaws and dust, she hoped to vanish into someone new, someone braver. The whistle blew long and low. Redstone emerged on the horizon like a bruise against the sand. Wooden buildings leaning with age, a single church spire rising defiantly above it all, and heat waves dancing over cracked earth. It was a place of beginnings or endings. Clara wasn't sure which yet. Her reflection in the train window looked tired. The freckles across her cheeks had faded from travel, and her green eyes held more storm than spring. Beneath the high collar of her travel dress, a thin silver chain glinted, just once, before she tucked it deeper into her blouse. Attached to it was a key. No one knew what it unlocked. Not even her. The train jolted. Passengers stirred. A young boy chased his hat down the aisle, laughing, while an older woman clutched a Bible and muttered prayers under her breath. Across from Clara, a man with burned scars along his jawline sipped coffee from a dented tin mug, never blinking. She didn't ask questions. This wasn't a land for questions. It was a land for survival. Stepping off the train, the heat hit her like a wall. The wind carried the sharp tang of sweat, horse dung, and something sour, old whiskey and rot. The platform was nearly empty. She scanned the crowd, her heart lifting at every tall figure in a hat. But none approached her. No one matched the face from the photograph she clutched. No one looked like her intended, Elijah Kane. She waited an hour. Then she found him, or what was left of him. He sat slumped against the church steps, his chest soaked in red, lips parted as if he'd tried to say her name and failed. Flies buzzed. The sheriff, a wiry man with eyes like broken glass, offered no answers. "Found him like that this morning. Sorry, ma'am. Real sorry." Elijah had written he'd saved a small parcel of land, that he'd built a cabin for her, that he'd planted peach trees. Now all of it was ash and lies. Clara stayed at the boarding house that night, not sleeping. She heard coyotes howling, and once, a scream so shrill it silenced the crickets. She stared at the ceiling and wondered, had she come all this way to die too? The next morning, she wandered the town, not knowing where to go, eyes drawn to the burned edges of buildings, bullet holes in shutters, and the way men spat before tipping their hats. She passed a preacher who watched her too long, a barmaid missing 2 fingers, children who stared but didn't smile. At the saloon, she saw him again. The man who had appeared the night before like a ghost with a gun. He sat alone at a table, boots up, a black hat shadowing his face. His shirt was crisp, but his hands, battered and brown, gripped a glass like it was his last tether to civility. Their eyes met. He nodded once, slow, like he already knew everything about her. "Name's Colt McAllister," he said, voice low and gritty. You're the bride. She hesitated. Was. He looked past her, as if reading something behind her shoulder. Men who killed your groom won't stop. They don't like promises made. And they hate promises kept. She flinched. Why would they care about me? Colt stood, finishing his drink. 'Cause you were meant to start a new life. Out here, that's enough to get you killed. Before she could answer, he walked past, brushing her shoulder just slightly. Enough to leave her unsettled. Enough to make her follow. Behind her, a man in a tattered coat watched from the corner of the saloon. He ran his thumb over a coin etched with a strange symbol, an eye in flame. When Clara left, he followed too. What did Elijah die for? Who was Colt, really? And what secrets had Clara brought with her in the chain around her neck? Danger wasn't coming. It had already arrived. 3 days after Elijah's death, Clara stood alone on the edge of what was supposed to be her future. His land, if you could call it that, was a scorched plot west of town, where only charred timbers remained of the cabin he'd written about. No peach trees. Just a broken fence and a rusted shovel leaning against a stone marker with his name hastily carved into it. She knelt, pressing her palm to the earth. You promised me safety, she whispered. The wind kicked up, whispering through the brittle brush. That's when she heard it, a sharp snap of a twig behind her. Clara rose slowly, heart pounding. Who's there? No answer. Then, a sack over her head. She thrashed, but rough hands bound her wrists. A voice growled near her ear. You don't belong here, girl. They dragged her across dirt and stone. Her knees scraped raw. Her breath came in panicked bursts. When the sack was pulled off, she found herself in a barn reeking of manure and blood. Lantern light flickered on 3 men. One leaned against a post, flipping a silver coin. The same man who'd watched her at the saloon. You brought the wrong kind of attention with you, he said. Clara stared, defiant despite the blood at her temple. I don't know who you are. The man smirked. Call me Sykes. Doesn't matter what you know. What matters is what you carry. Her hand instinctively moved toward her collar, then froze. The chain. The key. Sykes stepped forward and pulled the chain free, the key swinging from it like bait on a hook. This little thing here? It's why Elijah died. And if you don't start talking, you'll follow. Clara's eyes burned. It's just a key. I don't know what it opens. Sykes laughed, dry and cruel. You're lying. But that's all right. We've got ways to make you remember. He nodded to one of the others, a brute with scars across his neck. The man moved forward, fists clenched. Then, boom, the barn doors exploded inward, wood splintering like shrapnel. A flash of steel. Gunfire echoed. Screams. When the smoke cleared, 2 men lay groaning in the hay. Sykes had vanished into the dark. And standing there, breath steady, was Colt McAllister, revolver still smoking in his hand. Guess I got here just in time, he muttered, stepping over one of the fallen men. Clara stared, gasping. You followed me. I told you, he said, cutting the ropes at her wrists. They won't stop. He helped her up, but didn't let go of her arm. That key, what does it open? I told them the truth. I don't know. He paused, studying her. Elijah's father ran with some dangerous men. Treasure hunters. Secret societies. Not just gold. They were after something older. They all died. Except Elijah. Until now. Clara's voice trembled. You think I have something they want? I think you're the only one left who might accidentally hold the answer. They stepped into the moonlight, horses waiting. The town shimmered on the horizon like a fading mirage. Where are we going? She asked. Colt looked back at the burning barn, jaw set. Somewhere they won't find you. Yet. Before they could mount up, a single bullet whizzed past Clara's ear. She hit the ground. Colt spun, gun raised. Sykes stood in the distance, eyes wild, coat billowing in the wind. He wasn't aiming to kill this time. He was smiling. You can run, McAllister, he shouted. But she'll lead us to it. Whether she wants to or not. Clara clutched the chain in her fist, her heart pounding louder than the gunfire still echoing in her ears. What secret had Elijah left buried in this land? And what would she become once it was unearthed? The desert sprawled before them, a vast ocean of rust-colored sand and jagged stone. Clara rode beside Colt in silence, the key tucked safely in a pouch near her chest. Every few minutes, she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting Sykes and his men to come galloping out of the dust. But only the wind chased them, for now. Colt hadn't said much since the barn. He rode with the quiet ease of someone used to being hunted, always scanning the horizon, always watching. What exactly are we looking for? Clara finally asked, her voice raw from heat and fear. A man named Josiah Mott, Colt said. He was Elijah's partner once. Helped bury what they found, whatever that key belongs to. And you trust him? Colt snorted. Hell no. But he's the only one left who might point us in the right direction. They stopped at an abandoned way station by nightfall. The structure was mostly ruin. One wall half collapsed, the roof patched with rusted tin. Colt tied the horses, while Clara searched the cupboards for anything salvageable. Mice scattered, and a bottle of old bourbon rolled out. She took a sip, coughed, then handed it to Colt without a word. He raised it in a silent toast before taking a long pull. You ever wonder if Elijah knew he was going to die? She asked. Colt hesitated. I think he hoped he'd outrun it. We all do, one way or another. She looked up at him, eyes searching. How do you know so much about all this? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned the bourbon bottle in his hand, staring into its amber depths. Because I rode with Elijah once. A long time ago, before he left the outlaw trail, before he tried to make something good. Clara's breath caught. So he lied to me. Colt looked her dead in the eye. He lied to everyone. But he was trying to be better. That's more than I can say for most. That night, she dreamed of fire. Of Elijah bleeding beside a locked chest. Of a voice whispering, "Open it, Clara. Open it before they do." By the time they reached Dead Man's Pass, 3 days had gone by. The trail narrowed between towering rock walls, the wind funneling through with a mournful howl. They walked their horses, the silence between them now tinged with something unspoken. Not quite trust, not quite warmth, but something shifting. At the narrowest point, Colt held up a hand. We're not alone. Before Clara could ask, gunshots cracked through the canyon. Colt shoved her behind a boulder and returned fire. Men in dust-covered coats closed in from both sides. Sykes had found them. Colt yelled, "Keep low. Head for the crevice to the left." She crawled on hands and knees as bullets ricocheted off stone. Colt covered her, his aim deadly, efficient. One man screamed and fell. Another tried to flank, but Colt was faster. They barely made it through the crevice, narrow enough to scrape skin, before tumbling down into a dry gulch on the other side. Clara's dress was torn, blood on her forearm. Colt knelt beside her, checking the wound. Just a graze, he said, tying it off. I'm fine, she whispered, trembling. He looked at her, something soft in his eyes. You're tougher than you let on. And you're not as cold as you pretend. They stared at each other a moment too long. Then Colt stood, brushing off the moment. We keep moving. They'll double back. By the time they reached Josiah Mott's homestead, deep in the canyons, hidden beneath an overhang, they were starved, sunburnt, and ready for answers. Josiah was an old man with one eye, half a lung, and a shotgun that didn't tremble even when aimed at Colt. I said I wouldn't be seeing you again, McAllister, he growled. And yet, here we are, Colt replied. Josiah eyed Clara. She's the one. Colt nodded. Elijah's bride. And she's got the key. Josiah didn't invite them in. Just nodded toward a fire pit and sat on a log with a tin cup. Your groom was a damn fool, he told Clara. Should have thrown that thing into the river. What is it? She asked. Josiah looked around like the shadows might be listening. It opens a vault. Not money. Not gold. Knowledge. Something the society wanted kept buried. Maps. Documents. Maybe even names. Enough to bring down men in Washington, in Richmond, even in Europe. Clara's mouth went dry. And Elijah had it. Josiah shook his head. He found it. Then he got scared. So he hid it. And the key? Colt pressed. Won't help you without the vault. Which is in a place you won't find without someone who knows the path. Colt frowned. You mean you? No, Josiah said, eyes flicking to Clara. I mean her. They both turned to her. Josiah leaned forward. Elijah used to mutter things in his sleep. Names. Places. One of them matched the town on your birth certificate. You think you came here for Elijah. But truth is, he came for you. Clara shook her head. That's not possible. I didn't even know him when he proposed. You sure about that? Josiah said. Or did someone tell you to forget? Clara stood up fast, dizzy, heart racing. A memory itched behind her eyes. Smoke, horses, a man screaming her name. A flash of gold. Then nothing. Colt caught her arm. Hey, breathe. I don't know what's happening. You're remembering, Josiah said. And you'd better remember fast. Because they're not gonna wait. That night, while Colt and Josiah slept in turns, Clara stood alone near the canyon's edge, watching the stars burn cold above her. She fingered the key around her neck. Not just a trinket. A map. A past. A curse. Behind her, a voice whispered, You ready to tell him? Clara spun. Colt stood there, silent, waiting. Tell him what? She asked, even though part of her already knew. Colt stepped closer. That you're not just a bride. You're part of this. Clara looked away, lips trembling. I didn't ask for any of this. None of us did, Colt said. But we've still got a choice. She met his eyes again. Do we? Before he could answer, a flare lit the sky in the distance, red, arcing high over the canyon. Josiah cursed. They found us. Colt grabbed his rifle. We ride. Now. They mounted in silence, the horses tense beneath them. Clara clutched the key so hard it left a mark in her palm. She had come to Redstone for love. Now, she was riding toward a secret war, and the past she thought she left behind was galloping to meet her head-on. They reached the edge of Crow's Nest Ridge by dusk, an ancient mesa carved with weathered petroglyphs and ghost trails. Colt called it sacred ground. Josiah said it was cursed. Clara only knew that her dreams had started turning violent the closer they got. The wind shrieked as they set up camp in a canyon hollow, nestled between red rock cliffs and thorn-choked brush. No fires tonight. Colt didn't want to draw attention. Not with Sykes out there. Not with them closing in. Josiah sat polishing his old revolver, coughing into a handkerchief soaked with blood. We're nearly there, he muttered. Vaults 3 miles east, hidden beneath a dried-up creek marked by a cross of stone. Elijah made sure it wouldn't be found easy. Clara sat apart from the men, fingers tracing the outline of the key inside her blouse. Her head throbbed. Visions pulsed behind her eyes. Dust. Blood. A man in chains screaming her name. Elijah, she whispered. No, said a voice. She turned sharply. Colt was beside her, watching. He looked different in moonlight, softer, worn. You called out just now. I keep seeing things, Clara whispered. I don't know what's real anymore. Then let me ask you straight, Colt said. Do you remember the fire in New Bethany? Clara blinked. That was years ago. A mine collapsed. What? He hesitated. Elijah's journals said something different. That it wasn't an accident. That a girl survived who shouldn't have. Someone with a map burned into her memory. Clara went still. Your name? Colt said. It wasn't always Clara Whitmore, was it? Her stomach turned. She wanted to deny it. To say she was just a schoolteacher from back east, caught in something she didn't understand. But the truth buzzed in her bones like a long-buried hornet's nest. I don't know who I was before the fire, she whispered. I woke up in a stranger's house. Face bandaged. Voice gone. They gave me a name. A life. But I always wondered. Josiah's rasp broke through the silence. Then it's true. They turned. The old man was on his feet, revolver raised, aimed at Clara. You're not just the key, he said. You are the vault. Colt stepped between them. Put the gun down, Josiah. She's the reason they're hunting us. Josiah spat. The society didn't lose the map. They burned it into her. Carved it into her memory as a child. And now it's waking up. Clara backed away, heart hammering. That's not possible. Josiah's eyes burned. You think Elijah married you for love? He married you to protect the map. He knew they'd come for you one day. Clara turned to Colt, her voice barely a whisper. Is that true? Colt's silence was answer enough. Her face twisted with betrayal. You knew? I didn't know for sure, Colt said. But I suspected. I thought if I got you to the vault first, if I kept you safe, it wouldn't matter. You lied to me. He reached for her. Clara. She slapped his hand away and turned, just as a gunshot cracked through the canyon. Josiah dropped to the ground, a bullet through his chest. Screams echoed. Dozens of figures swarmed from the shadows, Sykes' men. Some wore dusters, others bore strange black armbands and silver medallions. Not outlaws. Society hunters. Colt pulled Clara behind a boulder, returning fire. We've been followed since the ridge. Clara clutched the key, hands shaking. They want what's in my head. A voice boomed over the chaos. Sykes, calm and cold as ever. You've run long enough, Clara. Come quietly. Let us finish what was started. Or everyone dies. Clara's breath hitched. She looked to Colt. I can't outrun this. Then we fight, he growled. But Clara's eyes locked on Josiah's bleeding form. His last breath had formed one word. Remember. And she did. In a flash, a secret door in stone. A ritual. A symbol burned into her arm. She gasped, pulling up her sleeve. There, faint but visible under the dirt and blood, was a scar in the shape of a compass rose. Her voice trembled. I know where the vault is. Colt turned to her, stunned. What? It's not out here, she said. It's beneath us. She pointed to the petroglyph-covered wall beside them. The map, it's not just a memory. It's a trigger. This is the entrance. Before he could respond, a dynamite stick landed nearby, hissing. Colt grabbed her, tackled her behind a stone outcrop. Boom. The canyon lit up with fire and screams. When the dust cleared, Clara rose from the rubble, bloodied, furious, and alive. And for the first time, she didn't look like someone running from a past. She looked like someone ready to claim it. The stone vault groaned open with a deep, ancient hiss, revealing a narrow tunnel descending into the earth. Colt lit a lantern, the flame dancing off the walls lined with carvings, symbols older than the country itself. Clara stepped in first, the compass rose scar on her arm glowing faintly in the flickering light. Every inch they moved forward, the air thickened. The walls narrowed. The past pressed in on them like a tide. Above, gunfire rattled through the canyon. Sykes and his men were still out there. But down here, something far older and darker waited. This wasn't just about secrets, Clara whispered. This place, it's a tomb. Colt said nothing. He followed her deeper, jaw tight. They hadn't spoken since Josiah's death, his betrayal, her revelation. Trust had cracked, and the silence between them was louder than any words. At the base of the tunnel, they reached a door, iron-plated, sealed by a strange mechanism shaped like Clara's key. She hesitated. If I open it, we find the truth, Colt said, and we finish what Elijah started. She slid the key into the lock. Click. The vault rumbled, ancient gears grinding. Inside, a chamber with stone shelves, parchment scrolls, handwritten ledgers, and a body, dressed in black robes. Desiccated, holding a book bound in skin. Clara stepped forward, hands trembling as she opened it. Names, transactions, symbols. At the back, a page with her name, not Clara Whitmore. Sarah Hollow, she breathed. That was me. Before the fire. Colt read the inscription beside it, bearer of the flame. Memory keeper. He looked at her, stunned. They didn't just mark you. They made you the fail-safe. The realization hit her like a whip. They erased me. Hid me. So if the society ever tried to rise again, I'd remember how to stop them. Suddenly, a gunshot rang through the chamber. Colt fell. Blood spilled from his shoulder. Sykes stood in the tunnel behind them, flanked by two society hunters. One aimed his pistol at Clara. Step away from the book. She didn't move. You'll kill us either way. Sykes smiled. Maybe, but I'd rather not destroy the only copy of what's in your head. Colt groaned, gripping his wound. Don't give it to him. I won't, Clara said, voice low. Then she snatched a torch from the wall and pressed it to the edge of the parchment. Sykes roared, and oh, the fire caught quickly, consuming the first few pages. Sykes lunged. The hunter fired. Clara dove behind the stone altar. Gunfire lit up the vault. Colt, one-armed, returned fire with precision. One hunter dropped. The other flanked him, but Clara struck the man with the iron key, knocking his aim. Colt shot him square in the chest. Now only Sykes remained. He stood in the center of the chamber, blood on his face, eyes wild. You think destroying it changes anything? We'll rebuild. We always rebuild. Clara stared him down. Not if I finish it. She turned to the flames and dropped the rest of the book in. Sykes charged. Bang. Colt's bullet stopped him mid-step. The outlaw slumped to the floor, a look of disbelief frozen on his face. The flames danced higher. Clara dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Colt groaned behind her, slumped against the wall, blood seeping through his shirt. She crawled to him. You're losing too much. I'll live, he rasped. But we've got to get out. That fire's gonna suck all the air. They barely made it up the tunnel, coughing, lungs burning. When they burst into the canyon night, smoke billowed behind them. The entrance collapsed with a final rumble, burying the vault forever. They stumbled toward the horses, but a figure stood in their path. Eva, one of Sykes' lieutenants. Cold-eyed, ruthless, and now, gun drawn. I ain't here for the society, she said. I'm here for you, Colt. Clara raised her pistol. Who the hell is she? Colt's face twisted in pain, physical and emotional. She's my sister. Eva smirked. Half-sister. Mama didn't mention me, did she? Clara stepped between them. What do you want? Eva cocked the pistol. Everything. Colt left me to rot. Chose Elijah. Chose this whole damn redemption path. Thought I'd just fade. But I made my own way. And now, I want what he had. Clara raised her weapon. You'll have to kill me first. Eva sneered. Maybe I will. Colt gritted his teeth. Don't do this, Eva. Her hand shook slightly. Why not? You did. Then a shot. Eva gasped. Blood bloomed across her blouse. She fell to her knees. Behind her, Clara lowered her smoking gun, eyes full of sorrow. I'm sorry, she whispered. Eva crumpled without a word. The canyon fell into silence. They buried Eva beneath the cliff she once ruled. Colt said nothing the whole time. Later, under a sky full of stars, Clara knelt beside him. You okay? He shook his head. No. But thank you. You saved me. I saved us. He looked at her then. Really looked. What happens now, he asked. She stared toward the collapsed vault. We ride. Find a new place. Start over. You and me? She hesitated. That depends. On what? Whether we stop running and start healing. Colt offered a broken smile. Sounds harder than any outlaw trail I've ridden. She reached for his hand. We'll ride it together. But before they could stand, the wind shifted. And from far down the canyon, a low rumble echoed. Not thunder. Hooves. Dozens. Maybe more. Clara stood, face tightening. They're not done. Colt grinned through bloodied teeth. Then neither are we. The desert was on fire. Ash fell like snow across the crimson dawn as Clara and Colt crested Widow's Ridge. Below them, in a scorched ravine tangled with dead trees and broken wagons, the society gathered, more of them than either expected. Dozens. Maybe more. Black coats. Silver medallions glinting like fangs. At the center, atop a makeshift altar of charred timber and bones, stood a woman. Mother Alira. Clara's breath hitched. The name had haunted her dreams. A voice in the fire. A hand pulling her into darkness the night her town burned. Now she saw the truth in Alira's face. Cold. Beautiful. Ageless. And behind her a cage. Inside Elijah. Alive. Broken. But breathing. Colt's fists clenched. He's alive. Clara was already moving. They lied to me. They descended like ghosts through the haze, weaving past jagged rock and dry roots. Colt was limping, still not fully healed. Clara held her revolver tight. At the basin's edge, they found a fallen scout, society robe slashed, horse gone. Clara took his cloak and slipped it over her own dusty dress. You sure about this? Colt asked. No, she said. But we don't have a choice. Minutes later, she stepped through the crowd unnoticed, hidden in plain sight. Colt flanked the canyon, rifle slung across his back. Mother Alira raised her arms. Brothers and sisters, today we awaken the flame that was hidden in flesh. For decades, we searched. For decades, we burned false leads. But now, she gestured to Elijah's cage. The vault was opened. The book was lost, but its bearer stands among us. Clara pulled the hood down. I do. Gasps. Alira's expression didn't change, but her eyes sparkled. There you are, child. Clara stepped forward, gun concealed under her cloak. Let him go. Alira smiled. You came to trade. Yourself for the husband we allowed to live. How quaint. He's not a trade. He's a man. And he loved me. Alira's tone sharpened. He used you. Clara shook her head. No. You did. The crowd parted. Colt appeared on the cliffs above, rifle raised. Let's make this quick, he shouted. You harm her. I bring this whole camp down. Rifle swung toward him. Alira raised a hand to halt the chaos. Stand down, she said. Let her speak. Clara's voice trembled, but only slightly. You stole my memories. Burned my family. Branded me with knowledge I never asked for. And now you want what's left of me. Elira stepped down from the altar, silk robe trailing behind her. We don't want what's left, Clara. We want what's within. You were always meant to return. You were chosen to become more. Clara slowly raised her hand and revealed the flame-burned compass scar glowing red beneath her skin. Elira's breath caught. For the first time, she looked afraid. You activated it, she whispered. Clara smiled. I remembered everything. Then, boom. A shot rang out. Elira stumbled. Colt fired again, dropping 2 guards who rushed Clara. Chaos erupted. Clara dashed toward the cage, ducking as bullets hissed past her. She reached Elijah, eyes wide, hands bloodied, lips moving with her name. Elijah, hold on. Behind her, Elira screamed. Take her alive. 2 society hunters lunged. Clara fired. 1 dropped. The other struck her shoulder hard with a rifle butt. She staggered. Suddenly, Elijah surged to his feet, broke a rusted chain, grabbed the man's head, and slammed it into the bars. Blood spattered. Clara gasped. You could have escaped? Elijah met her eyes. I waited for you. She opened the lock. He staggered out, gripping her side. Above, Colt shouted, Move. Now. Clara and Elijah ran as dynamite thundered from the ridge. Rocks collapsed, crushing half the altar and driving society men to scatter. They reached Colt, both breathless and bloodied. But then, a crack. A bullet tore through Colt's thigh. He dropped to 1 knee. Clara screamed. Elijah turned, took another shot to the ribs. No. Clara dropped to Colt's side, tears streaming. Stay with me. He gritted his teeth. We're not done yet. Elira climbed from the rubble, blood running from her scalp, hair singed, fire burning around her. You will not leave, she hissed. You were meant to rise with us. Clara turned to face her, revolver in hand. No, she said. I was meant to bury you. Elira raised her hand, whispered a word in a forgotten tongue. The scar on Clara's arm began to burn, her knees buckling. Colt shouted her name. Elijah rose behind Elira with his last strength and tackled her into the fire. Both vanished in the blaze. Clara screamed, dragged Colt away as flames roared higher. She didn't look back. They rode out of the canyon by nightfall. Colt barely conscious. Clara wrapped his wound, teeth gritted, blood-soaked, and shivering. They stopped under a dead tree, sky full of smoke. Colt groaned. Is it over? Clara nodded. Elijah's gone. I'm sorry. She didn't speak, just leaned her forehead to his. You came back, he whispered. She smiled through tears. I always do. The fire behind them glowed one last time. Then it went dark. The sky had finally cleared. 3 days had passed since the fire at Widow's Ridge. Smoke still lingered over the horizon, but the winds were shifting west, as if the land itself wanted to forget what had happened there. Clara sat alone by the edge of a narrow creek, her boots off, bare feet soaking in the cool water. Her left hand rested on the ground, fingers tracing symbols in the dirt she didn't fully understand, symbols that had come back to her in fragments, in dreams. Behind her, Colt stirred inside the cabin they'd taken shelter in. A crumbling old trapper's post, walls covered in claw marks and dust. He was healing slowly, too slowly, but alive. She closed her eyes. Elijah's voice still echoed in her head. That final look before he pulled Elira into the fire. Not fear, not regret, peace. He remembered, too, who he really was, what he'd done, and why he had to pay for it. She opened her palm and stared at the strange scar burned there. The compass shape pulsed softly with heat, like an ember that refused to die. Colt appeared at the doorway, a blanket wrapped around his shoulder. You look like you're waiting for something, he said gently. I am, she replied, but I don't know what. He stepped closer, sat beside her. I've been thinking, he said, about how none of this makes any damn sense. Wives sent out west to meet dead men. Secret cults. Flaming scars. You coming back from the edge of hell. She chuckled softly. Yeah, that about sums it up. He looked at her, seriously now. You're not done with them, are you? She didn't answer for a long time. No, she whispered. They're not done with me. The creek flowed quietly. Overhead, birds circled the tree line, cautious of the smoke but sensing peace. Colt reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. He set it in her hands. She unwrapped it slowly. Her mother's locket. Charred. Bent. But still whole. She gasped. I found it in the wreckage, he said. Figured you might want it. Tears welled in her eyes. She opened the locket, expecting to see the tiny painting of her parents, but instead, she found a folded piece of paper tucked inside. Unfurling it, her hands trembled. It was a map, hand-drawn, markings across old canyon lines, symbols just like the ones she'd been tracing without realizing. And a name, the Hollow Gate. She showed it to Colt. This isn't over. Elira was just a part of something bigger. He nodded slowly. Then we go together. She shook her head. Not yet. Clara, you need to heal. And I need to find the rest of me before I can fight what's next. A beat passed. Then he said quietly, will you come back? She turned toward him, touched the side of his face, and smiled. I always do. He leaned forward and kissed her gently. There was no fire in it, just warmth, promise. She stood and began packing her saddlebag. Where will you go? He asked. She looked out to the horizon, where the fire leads. Later that evening, Colt sat on the porch with a rifle across his lap, watching as Clara disappeared down the dusty trail. The sun was setting behind her, casting her long shadow across the golden plain. She rode alone, hair tangled in the wind, locket in her hand, map pressed to her chest. Behind her, the past burned. Ahead, something ancient stirred beneath the earth. She came west to marry a dead man. She left with a scar that wouldn't heal, a truth that wouldn't stay buried, and a promise that someone out there still wanted her soul. But Clara wasn't a victim anymore. She was fire, and she was just getting started.